For the first time since he took over, Prime Minister Narendra Modi called with leaders from CII, FICCI and ASSOCHAM. Top industrialists were present in the same room. Each spoke for about 3 minutes. They gave their suggestions and ideas to the Prime Minister, who heard them out patiently. The challenge, of course, for the government is to revive the animal spirits. Credit offtake simply not taking off, investment climate not improving, industrialists refusing to put their money in the India story, still hedging their bets. The Prime Minister wanted to try and change that. Let's now get you what the Finance Minister said after this meeting got over.
India would be one of the lesser impacted economies world over. Most of the participants felt that we are going through a phase of extreme volatility. In fact, some of them suggested that volatility is the norm at the moment. And therefore, it is going to result in some turmoil in the markets as also on the currency front. Thrust of most of what the participants suggested was to take steps in the direction of further strengthening the Indian economy.
The economy is not looking up quite the way that India Inc. would have wanted. Global investors are beginning to get wary, and The Economist is writing that Modi talks more and does less. To get a sense after this big first meeting between India Inc. and the Prime Minister and his top team, we are joined now by the chiefs of India's three biggest industry chambers, the CII, ASSOCHAM and FICCI. Thank you very much, Mr. Mazumdar, Jyotsna and Rana Kapoor, for joining us on India Today. I want to start by asking you, Mr. Mazumdar, about the broad sense in the meeting that you went in with, and the kind of issues that were discussed, and the broad sense that you come back with.
Okay, you know, you got to realize, Rahul, there were about 35, 40 industrialists.
That's right.
And each one of them spoke, and each one of them got a chance to speak. So the issues that were brought up were very diverse. A lot of them brought up issues that concerned their industry. A lot of them brought up issues that were in general. But I think one thing that came through quite a bit was the China issue, obviously, because that's very much off the oven right now. So as far as the China issue is concerned, the general consensus was that because of the strong fundamentals and the strong macroeconomics, we were not affected as much as other emerging economies have.
Okay, so we'll take up each of those issues one by one. But Mr. Did you go in with the sense that the government wasn't moving fast enough, that things needed to happen in a far faster fashion, more dynamic, bolder fashion than we've seen so far from this Modi government?
You know, I think it's very unfair for us to put any timelines and time frames into what is going to happen. This is a very large country. We've got 30 states, 7 union territories. I don't think that it's as simple as it may sound. So in my personal opinion, the fact that this government is on the right track, it's got the right initiatives, and it's making an effort for implementation is good, is actually quite encouraging.
Mr. Kapoor, this is something that Dr. Manmohan Singh as Prime Minister did often. Were you surprised with the fact that in the first 15 months of being in power, Narendra Modi, who's supposed to be a far more corporate-friendly Prime Minister, hadn't had a single such organized interaction with all of you?
Let's face it, you know, there was no reason to have it earlier. Because, you know, the India story, let us reflect back, and this was also presented by the Chief Economic Advisor. India's own crisis was at its zenith in the same quarter 2 years ago, between July and September 2013, when we had unconventional monetary policy to make sure India has a safe landing. Then with the advent of the new government, the priorities were to recondition the economy, to rebalance the economy, to make sure inflation was harnessed, to make sure that, you know, fiscal imperatives were being met, and to get the reform process going.
We've just seen one of the top commodity traders of the world exit India, saying you can't invest in hope alone. We've also seen the Sensex roughly tumble to where it was when the Modi government kicked off. So people are saying that the Modi factor has been written off. Do you think global investors are getting spooked, and that's a concern?
I don't believe so. You know, the fact that the Sensex has fallen, it happened directly with China. It didn't happen with Modi. It had Modi, had nothing to do with it. What happened in China made...
If it goes up, it's thanks to Modi. If it goes down, it's got nothing to do with Modi.
No.
But Rahul, I think the Modi-nomics, I'm sorry to interject, Modi-nomics is becoming now Modi momentum. Mark my words.
Absolutely. So, the Sensex falling, it's a sentiment issue. I'm sure it'll find its way back up again.
The Economist wrote a detailed piece recently, Missouri, which says that, here's a Prime Minister who's talking more and doing less. They want to see more concrete action. They're saying for a government with the kind of majority that the Modi government has, we haven't seen bold economic reform of the sort that we saw under the previous BJP Prime Minister, which was Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Missouri.
See, the single largest and the boldest reform that would have really turned India around is the GST, which never really got a chance.
Are you disappointed with the fact that it's being delayed?
Yes, we are. And we are hoping that it does get passed as soon as possible. That actually is going to change the way the economy is going to look like. So I think that's one aspect gone, and I don't really think that he's just talks and doesn't do anything. There's a lot of work that has gone on. There's a lot of implementation that's happening. It takes time.
What was the general mood in the meeting? Was it of despondency, hope, optimism? How would you describe it?
To me, it was an interaction, a face-to-face with the hope that things were going to get better.
Mr. Mazumdar, if I ask you to pick one adjective to describe the atmosphere in the meeting, what would you say?
It was a combination of hope and optimism.
What about you, Mr. Kapoor?
I would say that there was a fair amount of bonhomie, because if you see the diversity of having corporate leaders, senior cabinet ministers, top economists in the country, and then, some of the leading bankers. So when you combine them, you find solutions, because solutions to business challenges is not an isolated, businessmen can't do it alone.
Political perception problem where the Modi government is perceived as being pro-corporate. All of you think it's not doing enough or as quickly as it should, and yet politically he is perceived as being a friend of industry.
No, I do believe that Modi, Prime Minister Modi, he's got his eyes set on the industry, because he recognizes that the growth of the country depends on what the industry contributes. Without the industry's contribution, the country is going to go nowhere. Yet at the same time, he's come up with these programs about health insurance, life insurance at 12 rupees a month, the safety net. So these are things that he's done for the underprivileged sections of the society. So he has done for both. Look at the number of bank accounts he had opened for the underprivileged. So it's not that he's doing it for one side. He recognizes and he embraces inclusive growth in totality.
Chinese markets seem to be on a downward spiral with no bottom. Did you all think of that as an opportunity or as a threat to India?
I think the Prime Minister made a very valid point when he said, किसी के दुख में हमें अपना सुख नहीं ढूंढना चाहिए. And it is not about the failing of China, it is about the strength of India. And I think that's how we should look at it.
What else did he say?
We said that, India is strong, and we all know that. We have the demographic dividend, we've got the demand and the supply, we've got a very consolidated fiscal, inflation is controlled. So we really have it strong as compared to any other country.
Were there any dissenting voices in the meeting, or all of you were very rah-rah Modi? Was there anyone who said, I'm not satisfied with the way things are going, Mr. Mazumdar?
No, because there was no occasion to do that. There's really just no occasion, because he listened to everything we said and he commented only on a very few issues. If somebody said a specific issue about his industry, he asked for a little clarification on that. Otherwise, he made no comment, besides what Jyotsna just said, that yes, industry also has a role, let's face it.
Did you get any promises on what the government would do going forward to try and revive animal spirits of the economy, to try and boost demand, to try and ensure that investment kicks off?
I will tell you this, Rahul, it was really, all listening today. The three economists spoke up a little bit, including Raghuram Rajan, and he didn't really comment on anything. He said Jaitley said that we've taken notes of everything you've said. A lot of them are very, very valuable inputs. Let us work on it. So there was no promises, there was no summation of the meeting. It was more let's hear what you have to say.
But Missouri, is there something you'd like to see the government do within the next few days or weeks to give you a sense that yes, you've been heard and acted on?
Like Sumit said, it was not meant to be a day of promises. It was for them to listen to us, and they heard us. What I personally feel is that keeping the current inflation in mind and our very consolidated fiscal, I think the lending rates need to be reduced.
Is that a hope that you have as well, that Raghuram Rajan should now cut back rates?
I think if you see, all the key metrics, if you see the fact that, WPI is down by approximately 7%, January to July 2015 over 2014, CPI is down almost 3%, 2.98%, same period. The GDP deflator, which is a very important, statistic to look at, that's leaning towards WPI. The fact of the economy is that we are in the middle of deflation.
Okay, it's very rarely that we manage to get the chiefs of CII, FICCI and ASSOCHAM all at the same time on the same forum. The Prime Minister enabled it first and we've only taken that forward.
So you've done a coup.
No, it's actually the Prime Minister's coup. We're just feeding off that and doing our own thing on the side. But thank you very much, Mr. Mazumdar.
You're very welcome.
And Mr. Kapoor for joining us in India Today. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.